We're going to move on. We're going to get into our news. Our first story on that point, we're going to talk about this French ambassador. Very interesting situation. So as you know, earlier this month, the French government announced their intention to recognize a Palestinian state in Gaza and the West Bank. They were the first of the G7 countries to make this announcement. In a letter, Macron intimated that at the General Assembly of the UN next month, he will be making this formal, and France will recognize the sovereignty of a Palestinian state. There's already 130 plus sovereign nations in the world that recognize a Palestinian state, but France would be the first of the G7 of the major Western powers, Western nuclear power, permanent Security Council member, to make this recognition. And the Israelis were not happy about it. The French are doing this because they recognize that Israel is making it so that a Palestinian state becomes impossible. And they're not hiding that. Netanyahu said today, he said, I promised you I would prevent a Palestinian state, and I did. So it is the policy of all these countries, including our own, that we want a Palestinian state. And Netanyahu is vetoing all of us while taking our money with both hands. So the French president said, if we don't make this declaration and intervene, there won't be a Palestine to recognize. Netanyahu's wiping it off the map. So we're going to recognize it in an attempt to throw a wrench in that process and slow Netanyahu down. And soon after that, the United Kingdom followed suit, and then Canada after the United Kingdom. And in a matter of 2 weeks, there were 0 countries in the G7. Now there's 3 that will recognize Palestine. And the statements are a little different. Some are conditional, some are not. But they're all moving to recognize a Palestinian state in a rebuke of Netanyahu and the ongoing war in Gaza. Well, Israel, and by extension, its proxy, the United States, were not happy about this. Our ambassador to France, the American ambassador to France, is Jared Kushner's father, Charles Kushner. Jared Kushner is Donald Trump's son-in-law, married to his daughter Ivanka. They have Jewish children. She converted to Judaism. Jared Kushner's father, Charles, is in New York real estate like Trump himself. He's a convicted fraudster, a felon, major supporter of the Chabad-Lubavitch dynasty of Hasidic Jews, which is extremely influential and comes from Russia, and which is also extremely influential in Israel and New York City. So Charles Kushner connects Russia, Israel, and New York. Charles Kushner and his son are from New York. They're New York financiers, real estate developers. Charles Kushner is linked to Donald Trump as his appointed ambassador to France and through his son, Jared Kushner. Charles Kushner wrote a letter to the French president on behalf of the United States and said that Macron, the president of France, must do more to tackle anti-Semitism in his country and condemned France's recognition of Palestine. Those sentiments were echoed by Gideon Sa'ar, a minister of the Israeli government. Israel and the United States working against France for recognizing Palestine, which is actually our foreign policy. France is more America first than we are. America's policy is for Israel to stop the war in Gaza. America's policy is for a Palestinian state to be established. Netanyahu is making that impossible. Both of those things. France is trying to prevent this, and we and Israel are condemning France. We're condemning France for trying to implement our own foreign policy, our own stated foreign policy. Because our government, like Israel's, is controlled by Israel. This is a story from the New York Times. It says, quote, U.S. Ambassador Charles Kushner was ordered to report to the French Foreign Ministry over a letter he penned to President Emmanuel Macron, accusing his government of not doing enough to combat anti-Semitism. The summoning sparked backlash from the U.S. and Israel. The controversy erupted amid concerns about an increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes in France as international tensions mount over Israel's war in Gaza. Kushner, in his letter to Macron, accused France of a lack of sufficient action. France retorted that, quote, the allegations from the ambassador are unacceptable. The rift deepened on Monday when Kushner was summoned to the ministry, and the Trump administration doubled down on Kushner's critique. Foreign Minister of Israel Gideon Sa'ar criticized France's decision to summon Kushner, calling the move the height of hypocrisy. On X, he wrote, instead of addressing the issue of the rising anti-Semitism in France in a substantive manner, France preaches against interference in the internal affairs of states, the height of hypocrisy. Macron came under fire from Prime Minister Netanyahu last week, in which the premier issued a written ultimatum to the president demanding he take a firmer stance against anti-Semitism in France by Rosh Hashanah in late September. He also condemned Macron for announcing his government would recognize a Palestinian state that month, saying the move pours fuel on an anti-Semitic fire. In a letter to Macron released to the news media, Kushner similarly alleged that such gestures embolden extremists, fuel violence, and endanger Jewish life in France. He said, President Trump and I have Jewish children and share Jewish grandchildren. I know how he feels about anti-Semitism, as do all Americans. Think about how crazy this is. It has been official U.S. policy since 1947. Even a year before Israel declared its independence, since the partition plan in 1947 to recognize a Palestinian state. Since 1967 to oppose the civilian settlements in the West Bank because they're an impediment to the establishment of a Palestinian state. It is the position of this administration, pursuant to achieving the Abraham Accords, to end the war in Gaza and establish a Palestinian state. Netanyahu and his Likud party for 50 years and even longer have been involved in a multi-generational campaign to prevent this from happening. And it goes on to this day with their continued war in Gaza. That's why they're there. They're still there in Gaza to make sure that the Palestinians can never return home. They will be shipped out and the land will be taken from them. They will never be allowed to return. So Israel is using our money and our weapons under political support, under a defense guarantee from our country to carry out this war that is against our policy going back to the very creation of Israel. They cannot fight this war without a defense guarantee that is ironclad from us, without political cover from us, without weapons and money from us. And the war is in direct contravention of 80 years of U.S. foreign policy. France is intervening to prevent Israel from erasing Palestine from the map. And for that, we are condemning them. They are taking more action to implement our own policy than we are. Trump is begging Netanyahu to stop, begging him to stop. He's sending Steve Witkoff back to Israel, back to Saudi Arabia, to Egypt, to Qatar, to all these countries, begging Israel, please stop. France is doing something about it. And we are condemning France on Israel's behalf. While they take our money to prosecute a war that we oppose, we're condemning France in defense of that war. And who's doing it? Well, Charles Kushner. Why is the ambassador to France someone who's clearly allied with Israel? Doesn't that strike you as a bit strange? France is one of our most important allies going back to the American Revolution, going back to World War II, World War I. France is one of our actual closest allies. If there's any country that is hand in glove with the United States since the beginning, it ain't Israel, it's France. It's England. We were settled by Englishmen. We bought most of this land from France. We wouldn't have our independence without France. We fought alongside the French. That's our closest ally. Why is our ambassador to France a Jew who is loyal to Israel? Shouldn't it be somebody that is maybe, I don't know, loyal to America and has a relationship with France on some level? Why is it a Jewish financier from New York? How is that America first? And what's more, who is this guy really, Charles Kushner? First of all, he's a convicted felon. Second of all, he's sort of a devil worshiper. Do you know that the headquarters of the Kushner business is at 666 Fifth Avenue? Look it up. Look it up. 666 Fifth Avenue is a property of the Kushner family. That's where Netanyahu stays when he visits New York, with the Kushners, with Jared and Charles Kushner. The Kushners are extremely loyal to Chabad Lubavitch, which is an ultra-Orthodox Hasidic dynasty. It's from Russia. The extremely influential rabbi of Moscow, of Russia, is a Lubavitcher. The Lubavitchers are extremely influential in Israel, extremely influential in New York. Many Jews believe that the leader of the Lubavitchers was the Jewish Messiah. When Donald Trump was campaigning in 2024, he visited the grave of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the head of the Lubavitchers, with Ben Shapiro and Jared Kushner, to leave his intention at the grave of Rebbe Schneerson. What's going on here? Now, there's also something interesting about this because the Lubavitchers connect New York City to Russia to Israel. The Lubavitchers are one of the biggest religious Jewish groups in the world. As I said, they are from Russia. The most powerful rabbi in Russia is a Lubavitcher. Putin's rabbi is a Lubavitcher. They have always been influential there. They moved their operation to New York in 1945. They're extremely influential in New York. And they're also in Israel, and they have Netanyahu's ear, extremely influential in the Israeli government. This transnational outfit connects Russia to New York to Israel. Charles Kushner, who's a supporter of this outfit, is our ambassador to France. Well, would you take a wild guess? Who is France enemies with? Russia. And right now, Netanyahu. France is enemy number one of Russia because France is the biggest supporter of the war in Ukraine. It is Macron that wants French officers and troops in Ukraine. It is Macron that wants an intense security guarantee for Ukraine. It is France that is fighting Russian mercenaries and PMCs in West Africa for control over those capitals. Netanyahu has a big problem with Macron because Macron recognized Palestine. Why is Charles Kushner, who is loyal to Israel, loyal to Jewry, loyal to the Lubavitchers, connected to Russia and Israel, why is he the ambassador to France, the adversary of Russia, and has a big problem with Israel? And it also makes me wonder, what's going on with Candace Owens? Candace Owens has a huge problem with Emmanuel Macron and Brigitte Macron. Now, a lot of people say, why are you defending the Macrons? I'm really not. If you pay attention to what I'm saying, I'm not defending them. I don't feel one way or the other about them. And is there something weird going on with Brigitte Macron? It certainly seems like something's going on. I don't think that she is Emmanuel Macron's dad. I think it's unlikely that she's a man. I think what might be the case is that it's a different woman. But I'm very skeptical of all that. I really don't have strong feelings one way or the other. All I'm saying is it is a bit interesting that France is the enemy of Russia. Macron has a beef with Netanyahu. Charles Kushner, who is a Lubavitcher, clearly some kind of devil worshiper, that's what it looks like. They all have a problem with Macron, and so does Candace Owens. And wouldn't you know that Candace Owens and her husband, George Farmer, have both been backed by Rebecca Mercer historically. Rebecca Mercer is a big supporter of both of them. Rebecca Mercer handpicked her husband, George Farmer, to run Parler for her. The servers were in Russia, and Rebecca Mercer was married to a Russian oligarch. We're supposed to believe that Macron, and maybe he's a part of some outfit that is evil, we're supposed to believe that he's the ultimate bad guy. But if he's the ultimate bad guy, why is Charles Kushner and Netanyahu have such a problem with him? Why are they threatening him? Clearly, there's more than meets the eye there. So all of it's very strange. And I can tell you one thing, none of this is consistent with America First. We should be working more closely with France on this. France is a guarantor of not only the Palestinians in some sense, but also in particular the Lebanese and the Syrians, because these are former French holdings. France shares our skepticism of a war with Iran. They always have. France is willing to go against Netanyahu. Why are we alienating France? Why is Charles Kushner attacking? Well, we know why. But why is America backing him up? And why is there an American podcaster who's so influential that is creating this weird scandal around Macron with very thin evidence? Do you know that Becoming Brigitte is the name of a book? That this theory comes from an esoteric author in France, and that author believes that he's working on behalf of Putin and Trump personally? The guy's psycho. He really believes, he's one of these QAnon guys. He thinks that he's working for Putin and Trump to take down France. Is working for Putin's rabbi and Charles Kushner really the good thing that we think it is? So as always, there's more than meets the eye here. And I wonder why we're only getting half the story. Macron has Rothschild and banking connections. There's something weird going on with Brigitte Macron. I don't doubt any of that. And it deserves scrutiny. And Macron has been a supporter of mass migration. He has suppressed Marine Le Pen. This guy's not necessarily the friend of nationalists. I would never say that. But why are we only getting that half of the story and not the other half? Why are we only getting one half of the story and not realizing that so many of the right-wing elements in Europe are backed by Israel? Do you know that the Christian Democratic Union in Germany will not support a Palestinian state? Because the conservatives in Germany are in bed with Israel. The AfD party, the Alternative for Deutschland, that everybody was so excited about, they're getting more pro-Israel every single day. The National Rally Party in France, led by Marine Le Pen, they say AfD is too radical. They don't want mass deportations. They don't want remigration. Marine Le Pen disavowed her own father for anti-Semitism. The other right-wing guy in France, his name is Eric Zemmour. He spoke at Yoram Hazony's conference and said that there's no racial basis for Europe. It's all just a tradition. It's all Judeo-Christian. And the United Kingdom, J.D. Vance just visited the second in command in the Tory party, who is married to an Israeli. He converted to Judaism. So there's more than meets the eye. No one is talking about the fact that in France, in Germany, in the United Kingdom, in the Netherlands, in Spain, in Italy, in Brazil, in Argentina, in America, in Canada, all these conservative parties are connected to Israel, and some of them are connected to Russia as well. No one will talk about that. They will talk about the left. They will talk about Soros. They'll talk about Klaus Schwab. They will talk about Bill Gates. They will talk about the World Economic Forum and the European-style socialists. And hey, granted, I'm not a globalist. I'm not in favor of globalization. I'm not in favor of those left-wing outfits. But nobody talks about the fact that the right wing is just the other side of the exact same coin.
If I may intervene very quickly. So just a couple of notes that I had, and then I'll get right back to Nick. Notice how they attack the fact or try to make it seem like France is growing more anti-Semitic. We already talked about even that word anti-Semitic, how, what does it even mean? But aside from that, France is growing anti-Semitic. Is it that, or is it just that the entire world is anti-genocide? The entire world is just against what Israel is currently doing. Why does it have to be anti-Semitic, or you hate Jewish people, or you hate Israelis just because you disagree with what's happening right now? But then we have a problem when we say, should we call Israel anti-Semitic because of what they're doing to the Palestinians? The Palestinians could technically be considered Semites as well, right? Why do it? It always goes back to when you've okayed people feeling like victims and embracing victimhood for so long, it excuses their behavior. They don't even realize that they're doing certain things that are just atrocious because they think that because they've lived in this victim Olympics for so long that they can do any and everything and consider it a justified response. Anti-Semitic, people are anti-Semitic for disagreeing with Israel, for disagreeing with Netanyahu. Meanwhile, you're committing a genocide. And we're not going to discuss that though, right? But the nerve of y'all to call us or the nerve of y'all to say something about our government, to criticize the IDF, to criticize Netanyahu, to criticize us having the right to defend ourselves. It's been past that. It's been past that. It's a genocide. And you just don't want to be called out on it. And I don't know what's going on with Trump. I don't know what's going on with Trump, but it seems like, you ever played spades? Or maybe even in poker, I don't know exactly poker, but it seems like somebody in Israel or somebody that is extremely pro-Israel, pro-Zionist was holding a card against Trump, to where when Trump got in office, he had all this energy to where he was going to do certain things. And you can tell he's very frustrated. He was calling out, cursing, saying that Israel and Iran, they don't know what the F they're doing. And it seemed like his energy was a little bit stronger to Israel, just being totally honest. But it seems like somebody had a joker card, like somebody had something on Trump that they let it out later on, to where Trump he's just bent over completely backwards when it comes to Netanyahu and Israel. I don't know who this new Trump is, but Trump is being bullied. He's being bullied, and that's why he gets so frustrated when these type of situations are brought up, whether it's Epstein or anything else involving Israel. Just my opinion, though.
In Italy, you had Giorgia Meloni open up 3 Holocaust museums. She actually increased legal immigration into Italy. She made it harder for ethnic Italians to claim citizenship. She made it easier for foreigners to get legal citizenship there and open up a handful of Holocaust museums. That's your based right-winger coming in to save the day. Geert Wilders in the Netherlands fought for years against the Islamification of Europe. And then when he won, he stepped down as the leader of the parliament because someone in his party was anti-Semitic. In the AFD, the second they get power, super pro-Israel. In France, the head of National Rally disavows her own father over anti-Semitism. In the United Kingdom, you got Tommy Robinson on one side and, Gubu Magubu on the other side. And the deputy minister is a converted Jew. Bolsonaro, his son, is tight with Yair Netanyahu. Javier Milei visited the Chabad Lubavitch headquarters in New York, then went to Israel, then came back and cried, supporting Ukraine, supporting Israel against Hamas. We're not getting the whole story here. So when is it going to change? Are these really our best options as like globalist, neoliberal, mass migration proponent on the left and Zionist, globalist, mass migration proponent on the right? Because it sounds like it's basically the same thing. Klaus Schwab, the mad scientist, was running the World Economic Forum. Now you're getting the head of BlackRock, Larry Fink, a Jew from America, who him and his buddy Bill Ackman are pro-Israel, trying to destroy the anti-Semites. It's like musical chairs, but for Jewish oligarchs. Anyway, so I don't trust a lot of these people that are telling us the solution is, support AFD, support Marine Le Pen. Like Macron is the enemy. Klaus Schwab is the enemy. It's like, okay, so Macron goes down. Who wins? Marine Le Pen? She's a philo-Semite. She's the biggest pro-Israel person in the European Union. Hello? 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You get Joe Biden out, then you get Donald Trump. And what is he doing? Cracking down on anti-Semitism, bombing Iran, 600,000 Chinese students. Don't you realize it's a scam? Don't you realize, and you know what people are going to say to this monologue? They're going to say, but the left is worse. The system is literally designed so you would say that. It's set up that way to keep half the country on one side and half the country on the other. And they have tentacles on both sides. And so you're constantly telling yourself, oh, well, this is the way it's got to be, because what are we going to do? Go for the left? And this side's controlled. And on the left, they're saying the same thing. What are you going to do? Vote for the right? And their side's controlled too. When are people going to realize that that's the scam? That's the game. And my position is, I'm America first. I don't want to be involved with the Russians. I don't want to even be involved with the Israelis. I don't want to be involved with the left. I don't want to be involved with the globalists, with mass migration. Let's stop helping Israel bomb and destroy all their neighbors, and then let's stop bringing all the refugees here when they do it. Let's stop bringing in immigrants because they're bad for America, not because they're anti-Semitic. And let's actually follow through on it. Let's purge the universities for being anti-white and anti-American, not because they're critical of Israel. Like, is this crazy? Is this a crazy idea? Where's that new consensus? Where is that consensus going to find its rallying point? That's what I'm looking for. Anyway, but that's that. I do want to move on. I want to get into our featured story from tonight, the Scottish axe girl.